the thing that struck me about it was, and I'm 44, there was no traditional TV, media, anything. This was the first time that we saw a massive national, international event happen, and it was completely uncovered or completely broadcast via social media and people with their phones.
I think the reason why Charlie Kirk is getting so much coverage is because he was a polarizing, outspoken figure. I think that it's time to take a step back and just to reflect on the fact that he was a human being that didn't deserve to be killed, regardless of his political leanings, regardless of his philosophies, regardless of the things that he said that may have been objectionable.
To say we're all equal in our capacity is just absolutely, I think, a lie, because not everybody's made to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's made to be a salesperson. Some people just want to break rocks, and they're happy doing that. And I think what it is when we look at somebody like Charlie Kirk and why it's such a massive impact is, or why we put the value on it, so to speak, or the attention on it, Len, is exactly that word, value. This person, I think, was such a high person, individual, human being of value. And what I mean by that is not to diminish anyone's value, because I know we live in a world of hypersensitivity where we're like, everyone's equal. I wish we would stop saying that, because it's a freaking lie, dude. Everyone is not equal. We're not. To say we're all equal in our capacity is just absolutely, I think, a lie, because not everybody's made to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's made to be a salesperson. Some people just want to break rocks, and they're happy doing that. We are confusing children so much today with this shit. Sorry, I said it twice, and I don't want to say it, but we are confusing children so much with this crap today.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
Right, which again, I guess would take us into what we can really look at right now in today's climate, in today's world, which, you know, obviously very sad, and we're going to talk about it today, which was understanding and trying to gain understanding, right? And then obviously rationale behind everything that goes on. And obviously there's, you know, no secret, you know, today, and I felt compelled, you felt compelled to talk about this today. I know everyone's talking about it. It's pretty much the hottest thing as far as topic of news. It's the hottest thing. But obviously we're going to talk today about, you know, and unpack the Charlie Kirk assassination, because I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of understanding and rationale and tribal actions and human actions that are happening right now, and just different things about that precedent, because it's definitely evolving and morphing into something that I don't think a lot of people expected. But I think there's a lot of people that are cheering it on and going, okay, I think we're heading in the right direction with the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, which I would say and argue is probably, this is probably that moment in time for those who were around when JFK was assassinated, and for those who were around when Dr. King was assassinated, and for those who were around when, you know, RFK was assassinated, and so on and so forth. Those moments in time. Abraham Lincoln, right? That's a long time ago, but I almost feel like this assassination, because it's in such the modern era of digital technology, news information, all of these different things, I think that this is probably the most widely known or most widely felt on all levels in the history of assassinations in America, simply because we're in an era right now where, I don't know, to me at least, it looked like it. I watched and seen the whole thing happen live. And I remember I got off a meeting and my wife says, "What's going on right now on TikTok?" And I went, "What?" And she tells me, and I look, "Is Charlie Kirk getting shot at?" And I went, "No." And I look on Fox News and all that stuff, and nothing. And all of a sudden it just starts to pop. Shooting reported at OREM. And I get on X, and I saw the whole thing unfold live on X. the thing that struck me about it was, and I'm 44, there was no traditional TV, media, anything. This was the first time that we saw a massive national, international event happen, and it was completely uncovered or completely broadcast via social media and people with their phones. And I think that we're at a tipping point in America right now, or I believe we were at a tipping point in America, right? We're at a tipping point. And I want to say, I believe that what I've seen so far is I want to say it's definitely tipping in one direction. I think it's definitely tipping in one direction. And we can open that up for conversation right now, but I think it's tipping in a direction that I don't think a lot of people thought it was going to tip in. But the first massive or major assassination since Dr. King, and before that, the Kennedys. Len, what the heck is going on, man?
Man, it's such a very deep, multi-layered idea to unpack, because I'm sure somebody who will watch this in the future will say, well, what about the couple that was assassinated in Minnesota? What about all of the kids that were shot at those different schools? And I think that all of those are true as well. I think the reason why Charlie Kirk is getting so much coverage is because he was a polarizing, outspoken figure. And I think that what's happening, as I see it, is that it really uncovered some of the lack of progress that we've made in the country. And I don't know how you're unpacking. I'm very interested to hear what you were thinking was going to be the outcome of this, because I think we probably will see it through a different lens, but I believe that we agree on many of the points that we're going to talk about. But anyway, having said all of that, what I mean by the fact that I think that it uncovered some things is that you had one congresswoman who, when she thought that it was a certain group or a certain type of individual, she had this indignant response. But then when she found out that at the time, in real time, finding out that that person didn't have those preconceived labels, her approach completely changed and her energy and her vitriol changed. And I think that it's so important, especially given the timing. Right now, a man was shot 5 days ago. A husband was killed 5 days ago. A father was killed 5 days ago. I think there's a time and a place to have conversations about the caricature of Charlie Kirk and who people thought he was based on maybe secondhand or third-hand information. I think that it's time to take a step back and just to reflect on the fact that he was a human being that didn't deserve to be killed, regardless of his political leanings, regardless of his philosophies, regardless of the things that he said that may have been objectionable. And also, we have to understand that as a human being, he was a good father, a good husband, as we saw it from the outside looking in. His wife spoke very eloquently about who he was. I saw a couple of other clips from people who actually knew him and people who fit other profiles other than what you would say. Like I saw a black gay guy speaking positively of Charlie Kirk. And when you look at it from the outside looking in, you wouldn't necessarily think that someone who fit those other boxes would be a person who would speak so highly of him. And so I just think that people right now are entrenching in their different camps. And I hope that the God in Charlie and the Jesus that Charlie prescribed to love will be ultimately what becomes the focal point that we need to get back to being loving, caring, kind people who operate through the golden rule, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, not do unto others as they would do unto you. There's a big difference between those two things. And so I could say a whole lot more, and I will say a lot more, but I just want to pause just to say, you know what? We need to just take time to take a beat and to understand that a man was killed, and people are killed every day. And yes, we do give different weight to different people, although we all are the same in God's eyes. But for the sake of public discourse, we bring this up because of the fact that there are so many people that have an opinion about him.
Yeah. I was thinking about that as far as, where we put the weight, and, there's, do we assign assassination to just a singular person? You know what I mean? Whereas like a group loss of life, such as, it's like school shootings, stuff like that. Is that like, that's a school shooting? We don't necessarily say that's an assassination. I think that this could be categorized as an assassination simply because they were deliberately taken out because the opposing voice or the opposing viewpoint could not beat them at that game, at the game of debate, at the game of life, at the game of research, at the game of critical thinking, at the game of morals, ethics, values, all of those things. It's the same thing as putting a cork in the middle of my baseball bat. Right now, obviously, it's an extreme level, right? We're talking about corking a bat versus killing somebody, but it's still, you have to cheat, right? And that's the ultimate form of cheating, which is you had to. This person scared you so much, scared the opposing that camp so much that the only remedy that we have is we got to kill him. We got to martyrize him in some way. Well, maybe not martyring him was the hopes, but I think he's becoming a martyr, right? I don't think that was the intended hope of it. I don't think that was. I think it was. I think that it was maybe an opportunity to revive that ideology or stoke the flames or whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's so many different theories out there, but at the end of the day, they couldn't beat that opposing side couldn't beat him at any measurable game. So they had to resort to that last and final way to cheat, to win. And I think what it is when we look at somebody like Charlie Kirk and why it's such a massive impact or why we put the value on it, so to speak, or the attention on it, Len, is exactly that word, value. This person, I think, was such a high person, individual, human being of value. And what I mean by that is not to diminish anyone's value, because I know we live in a world of hypersensitivity where we're like, everyone's equal. I wish we would stop saying that, because it's a freaking lie, dude. Everyone is not equal. We're not. I am never going to be able to play basketball the way Kobe Bryant played basketball. God rest his soul. I am never, ever going to be able to debate the way Charlie Kirk did. God rest his soul. I'll never be able to engineer the way Elon Musk does. I just won't. I just won't. We're not created equal. So I wish we would stop saying that we're created equal, because we're not. Now we're created equal under God in his sight, right? And we're created equal as we're all human beings and we all operate the same way, but we're all geared to do certain things and we're all geared to operate a certain way. And to say we're all equal in our capacity is just absolutely, I think, a lie, because not everybody's made to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's made to be a salesperson. Some people just want to break rocks and they're happy doing that. I think the problem is that Charlie Kirk was such a high person of value to such a large amount of people that his impact is very felt. I don't think it's about popularity. I think that when you look at Charlie Kirk, and maybe this is what upset a lot of people, I think Charlie Kirk was the complete 100% kryptonite antithesis of the left woke ideology that is just spreading all over the world right now. The you don't need to be married, you don't need to have kids, you don't need to have God in your life, you don't need to be disciplined. I mean, there's so many people that are dinks now today. You know what a dink is, right? Dual income, no kids. Like it's a point, right? It's we can go on vacation wherever we want. We can travel. So I think that he was such the epitome of and was such the antithesis of everything that is on the one side of things today in today's world, that's why it's so hard. It's so massively felt. Because realistically, he was the champion of the family marriage ideology. I don't think anybody else champions it the way he does or did. That's why it's so felt, I think.
I think that when you look at what he represented and the reason why people are up in arms about what happened to him is something that we need to unpack. So you talked about, they didn't want what he represents. The way I look at it is that it was Tyler Robinson who made the decision to get up, plan, carry out, get a gun, and shoot that man and kill him. And I think it's and again, I'm not saying this towards you, so I want to be very careful that you don't take it that way. I think that we have to be very careful in conflating one person's actions into an ideology that represents a group of people, because it would suggest that a group of people would have been willing to take that gun and shoot it. And I'm not saying that there aren't people within the left that you refer to who would not have been willing to pick up a gun. There'd probably be a long line of people who'd be willing to pick up that gun and shoot him the way that Tyler Robinson did. But it was one person's actions. And I think we've got to be very careful, especially right now, because what happens is when emotions are high, intelligence is low, and you and I, regardless of what happens, we're always going to stay in a logical space because we've understood through the lessons that we've learned and through the wisdom that we've experienced in our lives, how to stay calm and level-headed regardless of how we feel about a certain circumstance. Unfortunately, there are large numbers of individuals who allow their emotions to get the best of them to take action that is hurtful to other people, and in this case, deadly to somebody else. And I just think that when we take that action of that individual and we put that on a whole group of people, I think that becomes very, very, very dangerous. And I think that's how the stoke of fear and the stoke of war begins to start getting flames and creates more variables to create a tinderbox. And I'm concerned that the loud left and the loud right, because they speak the most and they have the loudest megaphones, that the people like us in the middle who don't believe that even though they disagree with somebody, they deserve to be taken out, we've got to be very careful to become a louder majority, because those thoughts of those fringe people don't reflect our beliefs and our values. Not between me and you, because I know you. I know your family. I know your mom. You know what I mean? Like, you know me, you know my family, and you know that neither of us reflect those views. And I think that more people that reside center left and center right need to become more outspoken without finger pointing to the terrible actions of an individual.
I think you make a great point that I want to touch on, but before I do touch on that point, because I want to wrap it up with that point, I do agree, and I would normally agree with a group not being associated with a lone actor's actions. But at the same time, the part that makes me a little worried about it is in that I think that that's normally the way it would work in America, and that's normally the way we would hope it's to work, is that the actions of that single person don't necessarily represent a pool of people where there's like a blood-brain barrier bleed, right? Where all of a sudden we have a group of people that are in that camp. But the shocking thing to me is that as this was happening, and as it did happen and post it happening, 24, 40 hours later, there was just a massive group of people that fit that ideology. They were openly celebrating in a very similar way.
That's true.
Online,
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Right? What I think the difference here now, though, is that, and this is where it's kind of weird, is after it all happened, the night it happened, after it happened, still to this day, everyone was angry, shocked, and upset in his camp or in that side. And you knew that, and everyone was looking at that camp. But what did they do? They prayed. There were prayer vigils overnight everywhere. There were prayer vigils all around the country.
Okay.
Which you saw, right?
Yes, I did see that.
You didn't see violence. You didn't see mass rioting, burning the streets. You didn't see any of that. Okay, fine, cool. But what I think you saw that's different here is that there are people that are on the other side of the aisle that are right-leaning that flip the script on a lot of these people and screenshotted it and reported them. And now there's this big thing. I don't know if you've seen it or not, all over social media, where there are people that posted that stuff about, or if they posted celebratory stuff about the assassination of Kirk, and those people screenshot it, they reported it to their employers, their businesses, whatever, and like boycotts of business owners, if that was you that posted negatively about it. Or there are people now that are crying, I didn't mean it, that got fired from their jobs. Because what happened was that there are people in the right side of camp that flipped the script on those in the left side and canceled them because they watched them doing during COVID. Yeah. And you saw that happen. But it was like kind of like there wasn't anything different. There wasn't any reaction that happened from the other camp that was different, other than we gave you your taste your own medicine with cancel culture, right? And we prayed and we were peaceful and there was no riots after it. But
okay, so I gotta jump in
because I have one more. Okay, I got one more point. I got one more point to make on it.
All right.
And I think that this is the biggest issue, and I think that this is the biggest problem, and it goes hand in hand with what you said. Having said that, we saw that, we've seen that, but the biggest problem I think here is that for anybody watching here is that this is all bullshit.
Okay.
And what we need to pay attention to is that, yes, when the media, when the news, when everything says and puts the stuff out there, they always show us the fringe of that one side, right? So I see the fringe of the left and the fringe of the right. But in reality, what I don't think most people know is that your neighbor wants the same that you want, more than you think it.
Right.
And we can't believe in what they say here and what they say here. We have to believe in, dude, if you're in America, you want a nice place to live in a safe community. You can go out to eat. You can go see movies. You can go spend time with your kids. You can raise them. You don't have to worry about no BS. You can unlock your doors at night. You can stay out till the street lights are on. You can go to a park at night. You could do these things and not worry about ill will towards you in any way. And I think that's what the majority of Americans want, whether you're Democrat or Republican or liberal or whatever. And I think that's what we lose sight of, is the fact that we just love thy neighbor regardless of whether or not you believe or you relate to them or not, or you are in the same camp as them, whether you're vegan or not. It doesn't matter. Love them, and love them for the fact that they're different from you. And that's really all there is to it. So I think that's what most people lose sight of. But I think that we saw the opposite. I think a lot of people thought there was going to be a lot of violence, and we didn't see that. I thought there was, at least, and we didn't. I don't think we have seen a lot of violence as a result.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So the first belief, and I think like by the time this gets out, our conversation may be off because there may be new information. Because as recently as a couple of hours ago, so there was the belief, okay, so this guy, he was 22 years old. His father is a police officer. Their family is Mormon. And so it goes against what people would have traditionally thought the perpetrator was, because the first belief is that the perpetrator was trans. And now it's coming out that there may be some connections because of the roommate and all of that stuff. We need to do some more investigation to find out what's the latest and what's real versus what's not. So you talked about rioting, and I think that it's very important to understand that rioting is not a right thing or a left thing. It's just, it's the reality is that riots is really the way that the unheard. There's a quote by Martin Luther King. He says that riot is the language of the unheard. And now when you talk about rioting or peaceful protesting, they both serve different purposes. And it's never okay to hurt people. It's never okay to destroy property. I want to be very, very, very clear about that. I also understand that when you talk about this idea that, the right or whoever the response was different, well, the reality is this. In Huntington Beach, there was a group of white supremacists that were out protesting, and this was before it came out who the person was. And the very next day, 8 historically black colleges and universities had to close down because they didn't know because there were threats of violence against those schools before they found out who the perpetrator was. So unfortunately, those stories don't get leaked on the right. Unfortunately, the fake news doesn't report those types of incidences, unfortunately. And so I think anybody who feels that they're unheard, and when I say anybody, I'm talking now about groups of people, how sociologically groups of people respond and react when they aren't heard. Some groups of people resort to violence, killing, assassinating, rioting, tearing down property and things like that. That happens on both sides of the aisle. And so, yes, I understand that the response in this instance wasn't rioting on the streets, but I think it's, the response was based on the fact that rioters typically riot when they have made petitions and they've expressed their anger and it wasn't heard, and legislation is made and decisions are made and they feel powerless. And the only way they can be heard is to protest and to riot. But again, there were responses, and that my community felt. My sons went to 2 of the schools that were put on lockdown. They had to close the school down because of credible threats that there could be some type of activity there. And so I just think that it's so important to not point fingers, because both sides of the aisle has good and evil. Both sides of the aisle has, good things that they do to respond, and terrible, evil things that they do in response. And so I just really, really wanted to point that out.
It's interestingly enough, and you're right. I'm surprised. I don't doubt that. I mean, I didn't hear about it, and I'm not even doubting that I would happen. I'm not even surprised. That would happen. Mm-hmm. I think there was a school shooting that happened like an hour or something after that.
It was going on. Yes, during that time, yes, right? That would have been headline news. You're right.
Headline news, right? So that was correct. Going on at the same time. But what I do think though is that the overwhelming majority response of it was not as crazy as I thought it was going to be. And I remember looking at the stuff online, and I remember seeing certain people post that were in that camp that went, "You have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea." And I'm like, dude, please, we don't need this shit right now, because you never know what could spark civil unrest in a mass way in a modern way that we've never seen before. And we are at a point right now where it could have happened there. And that could have been a tipping point moment, but I think it tipped in a direction where people went, crap, man, we can't get away with this shit anymore. We can't get away with this crap. We can't get away with bullying anymore. We can't. These guys on the other side are going to stand up for themselves. They're playing this own game. But I think getting back to the most important thing about it is that there was no chance for the media to immediately propagandize this because there was no media covering it.
Sure,
they weren't there. But 3,000 kids were there with their phones, and we saw that. But what I do think, what we did see happen here is that we do see the media trying to spin it now, and the media trying to utilize it now. But I think, again, at the core of it all is people need to really understand that this is not normal for America, meaning this isn't something that we shouldn't look at and go, guys, like, we need to understand why we failed as a society, where we would even allow for a second someone to think that it'd be okay to do that to someone who was nonviolent in their approach.
What would you say was
across?
What would you say was not normal about that? About that action? I want to understand what you're saying. Are you saying that the fact that somebody would take a gun and shoot an innocent person was not normal? What do you mean?
Well, I don't think it's normal. I don't think it's like, for example, I think the majority of people or understand or know you have that feeling when like the first time you were ever with like friends as an adolescent and you saw someone steal something, like at a drugstore or a convenience store, you felt like that feeling. You feel a feeling of like, it's not right. Mm-hmm. You know it, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Look, I'm not even going to pretend. It's that same feeling of whenever, and I don't think anyone's ever excused from this, but I think every living person on the planet Earth has at one point had some type of suicidal thought. Or thought about something, right? Mm-hmm, I'm not lying here. I know I'm not the only person, right?
For sure.
Please know I'm okay, all right?
Right. But you have to emphasize that nowadays, though, for real.
I'm okay, right? So I don't think that anyone's abstained from that, but you have like you have this barometer that goes right, that brings you back. So I think most people, the majority of people have that barometer. It's not normal. So for you to actually think about it, know about it, pre-plan it, you knew he was going to be there that day and speak that day. You knew how to get up on top of the building. You rehearsed it, went through the whole thing, shot that. Look, he had to have had experience with that, a 30-06 bolt-action hunting rifle. It's one of the easiest, most popular rifles to use. But again, at the same time, if you've never used a bolt-action gun rifle, then it's a little confusing. But
there are pictures of him since he was,
he's had experience with it.
For sure.
So I think about unfolding this, right? Like there were so many thoughts in your head that could have said, no, come back. But you felt it and you went through that. And I understand too, at the same time, Len, that I have to process this through the lens of a lot of things won't make sense to me because they're not supposed to make sense to me because that's not normal to me in my operating system or in my
yeah. And it's not normal paradigm. To you, but the question is it normal? Because you just talked about the fact that the same day there was a school shooting and nobody heard about it. Go ahead.
I'm going to pack it up. And I'm going to pack it up for you.
It's okay. I just want to
No. I'm going to pack it up because it's not normal. It's not normal because it doesn't happen on a daily basis or a monthly basis. But I think what's happening here, and this is just my thoughts on this, is that, again, he is fitting. I don't know who the school shooter was, right? Okay. But he's fitting this profile again. The shooter is fitting this profile that we keep seeing all the time. And I think what the problem here is, again, he rehearsed this and he had to go, And if you shot a gun, you know what I'm talking about. You get what I'm saying? And that's a very he iron shotted that or scoped it. I don't know. That's a very personal thing.
Yeah. And I think that, go ahead. I know you're unpacking.
It's just, you had to have had some. So here's my thoughts. Because this guy fits the profile. Young, confused, man, male. We're in this point of life right now. And I know this might not be popular and it's just my theory. And again, this is the thing that everyone has to understand. And the point of yours and I's conversation, Len, is that this is just a conversation about your viewpoint and my viewpoint, because at the end of the day, we want to put our viewpoints together to create a pragmatic solution to the world's problems. This is how we're supposed to grow as a species. This is how we've grown and survived as a preeminent species. Okay? We are confusing children so much today with this shit. Sorry, I said it twice, and I don't want to say it, but we are confusing children so much with this crap today that we have 3 brains. We have reptilian brain, midbrain, and high brain. And that reptilian brain is in war today with the high level brain, because the high level brain is being taught and being influenced things that the reptilian brain is hormonally driven by, that is going, no. Case in point, I understand the whole transgender thing. I understand it. I have a really good friend of mine whose their daughter is transgender. I get it. I've watched it. I've seen it personally. At the end of the day, the only reason why these kids are so mad and angry and confused is because their hormones are fighting with their brain and the shit they're being, crap they're being taught at school that tells them these things that are conflicting with their hormonal brain, their reptilian brain, and then they put them on antidepressants. Don't know if the suspect is in on it. This is a general conversation. Antidepressants and ADHD drugs that have proven side effects to create rage and anxiety and anger and depression. So not only are we educationally confusing these kids, but then we're disciplinarianly confusing them, because we're not reinforcing good behavior, reinforcing bad behavior, alt behavior. And then on top of that, we put them on drugs because they have conditions. And then those drugs have side effects that create the very thing we're trying to avoid. That, I think, is what's causing a lot of the problems in the youth of America today. Outside of the fact that they have more bad influences than they ever have had access to, and less positive influences, because we're busy spending the money on the baby boomers.
Where did that come from? But no.
Because 60% of the national budget goes towards entitlement and social programs.
Yes. Okay. So
baby boomers.
Interesting. You brought that one back. And for those of you who don't know what that reference was, that was in episode 6 and 7. So go back to it and check it out so you'll understand where his rage is coming from.
That was your college degree, knowing what episodes there was, Rain Man.
Because it stood out so much to me.
So, Len, as always, what a fruitful, eventful conversation. I've always enjoyed our time together. So I appreciate that. And again, if you got some value out of this conversation, you like what's going on, take a liking to us, take a subscribing to us, throw a comment, whatever. If you want us to talk about something, obviously, we're not going to be experts at what we're talking about. We're not going to be scripted at what we're talking about, but we're not going to be filtered at what we're talking about. We're just going to give you our opinions as we see it in the world, and encouragement to hopefully you give your opinion and understanding, and knowing that you could be friends and business partners with somebody and not totally agree with everything you say at the same time, and have a nice debate and conversation about it and have fun doing it. So with that being said, Len, I'll see you next week.
Take care. Till next week.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.